the worst meeting I've ever had. It was my first week of work, and the senior level called an all hands meeting up to our area, and I was like, shoot, what's this about? I was freaking out, so I talked to my coworkers, and I was like, what's this gonna be about? And they're like, oh, it could be about layoffs. This guy isn't a nice dude. So we walk up to the meeting room. We'll all sit down, and he's standing there in a rigid position. And he started off by saying, like, listen, guys, things are not good. In my head, I was like, okay, things are not good. Got it. And he proceeded to talk about how everybody was just sitting on their phones, not doing any work, production was down, and things aren't the way they should be, and it's all your guys' fault. Didn't take any of the blame. Didn't suggest any way to fix it. He just said it's all your guys' fault. And everybody just kind of sat there like, okay, we don't know what to say. We kind of sat around, and he was asking, like, what are you guys going to do about this? And a brave soul rose his hand. He's like, I think I can know what we can do about this. And he's like, it's not really our fault. We've been waiting on tooling for such a long time. And he's like, no, this is all your guys' fault. Cut us all off. And it was just a terrible meeting. And I used this meeting to model what I don't ever want to happen from a meeting again. Once I got the opportunity to lead my own meetings, that meeting kept popping up in my head, and I said, this is what I don't want to happen. And I shared that experience with my audience, and I promised them that would never happen to them. And there's a couple of ways that I made this happen, and I'm going to be talking to you about those ways today. So the first thing is setting standards. It's important to set meeting standards. In the beginning, I had a meeting to set standards for meetings, and it seemed kind of weird at first, but I wanted to know what people were expecting from these meetings. I asked them, I said, what are you guys expecting from these meetings? And we kind of broke it up into two separate sections. Informational versus brainstorming meetings. In the informational meetings, we had a couple people say that, hey, we're having these meetings daily. They're happening too often. It's not really benefiting us. It's taking up time. So they suggested switch to weekly. I said, done. Weekly meetings now. Another person was like, let me learn something new. Like, this is kind of boring. So that started the beginning of our meetings off with a quote, a fun fact, or just something new to liven up the conversation. And in the brainstorming meetings, there's no stupid idea. Always have constructive criticism, and if you're going to say something about somebody's idea, kind of reiterate what they had to say and then build upon that. I understand that you think this would be implemented here the best, but I honestly think it might be better to use over here. So you're telling them that you're listening to them, and you're not completely shutting them down. You're providing something to help build on to their idea. The second thing that I kind of did to try to not be like the first senior meeting manager I had was emphasize listening and being heard. In the beginning of that senior level meeting, the manager was just talking about all of his problems, how it was all our fault, and he cutting people off. He didn't want to let anybody else talk about their problems. He just wanted to say his opinion and let it be done. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and in that book there was a quote that says, the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. A lot of people, like the manager, he listened to the conversation of the brave soul who rose his hand, and once he found something that he could pick apart, or something where he could insert his opinion, he stopped him in the middle of his conversation. He was just listening to reply, listening for fuel to reply his comment, to let him be heard, to make him feel like the big man. But not a lot of people listen with the intent to understand what that person's saying. It's completely different. If you go into a conversation and listen and try to learn something from that conversation. If you have the mindset that everybody has something new or somebody's an expert at something that you don't understand that well, then you're going to learn so much more out of every conversation you have. And as the leader of the conversation, I kind of have everybody sitting in a circle, and I'd start off with the conversation and say, hey, how's everything going? And I'd let everybody else talk, because by the time it comes around to me, then my perspective might have changed. In the beginning, I might have thought, hey, these guys are doing bad, the numbers are down, people are lazy, but come to find out that a tool has been down because it's waiting on a part that's been messed up so many times that we've been waiting on it for 2 weeks from a company that's outside of our control. And if I would have yelled at them in the first place, I never would have known about that, and I couldn't have fixed it. So the third and possibly most important point that I'd like to make is be brief. Thank you.